What is up, guys? Troy here, and today's Wednesday, which means it's time for another episode of Battlefield My Thoughts. This is going to be a start of a four-part series about the current state of gaming. In parts 2, 3, and 4, I will be covering the various states of Sony, Microsoft, and of course Nintendo, but today I'm going to cover a topic that is important to all three game companies. Actually, not so much Nintendo is affected as much as Sony, Microsoft, and even the PC, but I do want to mention the gameplay a little bit. A few nights ago when I was playing, I was on kind of a suppressor kick, so I decided to change it up a little bit. The first game is, of course, Marquez Monolith Rush Defense, and then it'll jump to some TDM on Card Island. I needed to unlock the extended mags for the AS-VAL, so that is why I'm actually using the laser sight in the first part of the video, because I didn't have them unlocked yet. And I also decided to actually give the Rex a rest for a while and go back to using the Magnum. But let's move on to the topic at hand, and which of course is the used games. Now, the used game market has been a huge focal point of both the current generation and the previous generation of game consoles. Now, originally I wasn't going to cover this topic until one day I was surfing the web, and I came across two articles that kind of left me scratching my head. And I will, of course, link those articles in the description if by chance you haven't seen them yet. In the first article, the developer of Mad Max and the Just Cause games states that games are being traded in because they're too short. And in the second article, the president of Nintendo of America says that game companies, in order to avoid a lot of their games being traded in on the used game market, just need to make better games if they're so afraid of the used game market. Now, when I read both these articles, I was kind of puzzled by them, because it seems that both these guys are just out of touch with the used game market in general, being on the publisher, game console manufacturer, and developer side. The people that I know don't trade in their games because they're too short or they're just not that great. Some people might, but from what I've seen, most people trade in their games specifically because of GameStop's return policy that they have in place. Now, I'm not sure if the policy varies from store to store, but the closest store to where I happen to live has a policy that basically says if you buy a game and return it with the receipt within 7 days, you get all your money back. So I actually see a lot of people that I know that frequent that GameStop for their games that basically use that store as just a video game rental service. It doesn't matter if the game was good or bad, long or short. They're able to buy the game, play it within the 7 days, return it by the 6th or 7th day with the receipt, and of course get their money back. The video game publishers say they don't see a lot of money or any money from these used game transactions, and yes, that is true. They don't see any of the money on these trade-ins, but to what extent the trade-in market and the used game market actually hurts the developers and publishers is really that's up for debate. Movie and music executives and even PC game publishers in the past have exaggerated how much the used game market and even piracy have affected them. You know, game publishers across the board talk about rising development costs and the having to close game development studios because of a lot of these things. Now, while development costs have gone up, and there are many reasons why, advancement in game technology, the ambition of a lot of the developers when making a game, using famous actors for a lot of the voice work, etc., etc., the main reason why game studios have been shut down are because a lot of them have made crappy games that didn't sell very well in the first place, and they were never able to recoup their losses they compiled in the development phase. You look at like Danger Close with Medal of Honor. They got shut down because Medal of Honor was a crappy game. You look at a lot of these different publishers, or the different publishers that shut down these developers. A lot of these development studios, they usually get shut down on the heels of a really bad game. So a lot of it has to do with the fact that developers are not up to par with making good games, and it really doesn't have much to do with the used game market. It really is just developers making bad games, and those bad games just don't sell well, because in all honesty, if you're a gamer, why are you going to subject yourself to a bad game? And lately, to try to prevent a lot of these trade-ins and a lot of the so-called used game market and even piracy, some publishers have tried to put up roadblocks to prevent both the proliferation of the used game markets and piracy in forms of things like online passes, subscription models, and of course always online DRM. But a lot of these have backfired in the face of the customer disapproval. I mean, even EA has reversed their online pass policy, which is great. But overall, what I really want to cover is the fact that used game market is changing. For now, and for the next few years at least, you will still be able to go into your local GameStop or even on Amazon and sell your used title or pick up a used title like you've always been able to do, pop it into your system, and play until your heart's content. Until physical media is in fact phased out, that is. Now, speaking of physical media, it is at some point going to die in the future. Digital download will be the standard. And if you're thinking, well, Troy, I'm a PC gamer and I use Steam, so I'm not really a part of this whole used game things and I don't have game discs I have to worry about. Well, not so fast, because I'm also going to link an article in the description about game sharing your games on Steam. Now, at this point, it's just pretty much just a rumor, but I think Steam really has an opportunity here to set the standard for digital game sharing that would eventually become the future of the used game market. Steam already has jumped ahead of the pack by setting the standard for your basic digital download marketplace, your one-stop shop for most all your games for the PC gaming side of things. And I think when in the future that digital downloads become standard, this could be a great aspect that currently doesn't exist in the digital download market, and certainly could be a great benefit to a lot of gamers. Now, speaking of the whole digital versus physical, I want to talk about that for a few minutes. Now, I know a lot of people are very reluctant at it becoming the standard in the future. It suffers from what I call the Netflix effect, which is basically a circular cause and effect problem. Nintendo suffers from this as well, that I will cover in part 4 of this series. But it deals with the fact that back in 2011, Netflix tried to split their DVD rental service off from their online streaming service. Customers got mad. Netflix reversed its policy, which was actually bad. It actually resulted in a price hike for Netflix customers. Now, the reason Netflix was trying to split the services was so that they could prevent what's called cross-collateralization. And the end result would have been lower licensing fees for their streaming services. A lot of customers came out and said that they're reluctant to drop the DVD side of the Netflix company and go totally to the streaming side until the streaming side had a lot more varied selection of programs to choose from. Netflix responded to this by basically saying that they can't get the licenses, or at least the money, for more varied programs until more customers drop the DVD and jump on the streaming bandwagon. And what I call the Netflix effect is having a similar standoff with digital downloads. Gamers state that current internet infrastructure, bandwidth caps, the unreliability of the internet going out sometimes isn't equipped to handle a lot of these downloads of games, and game developers basically come back and say that, well, as gamers, you can't just wait around for your internet ISP to upgrade its current internet infrastructure. It's not going to help, and honestly, it's not going to happen. And I honestly have to agree and have to side with the game developers and publishers on this. Current ISPs, internet service providers like Time Warner, Comcast, and Verizon, and of course AT&T, at this point, they do not have any incentive to upgrade their internet infrastructure. AT&T has gone on the record stating that their Wi-Fi networks are more important than their hardline DSL network. So until more gamers drop the physical media and are more open to jumping on the digital download bandwagon, all that's going to happen is delay a better, less expensive, more robust gaming experience that we all as gamers could benefit from. Well, that's pretty much going to do it for this video, guys. That's how I see the future of the used game markets playing out. For the foreseeable future, it will be what it is now. But I could see eventually that with the dying of physical media, the used game markets, as you see now, will die with it. And companies like GameStop could be in a lot of trouble. But as always, guys, I really appreciate you watching the video. I appreciate you supporting me, and take care.